podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twit.
Bandwidth for frame rate is provided by CacheFly at CACHEFLY.com.
It's frame rate. And if you don't like this one, we have 94 others because it's episode 95 of Frame Rate. I'm Tom Merritt.
Howdy, I'm Brian Brushwood. And that opening video was from the fine folks over at Slacktory. It's every on-screen drink in Mad Men. The thing goes on for 5 minutes and 15 seconds, Tom. That's too long.
I'm not surprised. I can't imagine. I was actually a little surprised it wasn't longer. There's so many drinks in that series.
You can tell, man, they cut the edits tight. I mean, if you look at this, like, you get barely a half second on everything there. And, of course, you know, all of this, I think, harkens back to the effing short version of The Big Lebowski, right? Was that the first to really kind of do that thing?
Oh, yeah. That's the first one I remember, anyway. But yeah, I think you're right. Does it make you thirsty? Looking at that?
It does, actually. Here, let's do every on-screen drink for Brian on Frame Rate. There it was.
We're done.
I hope you enjoyed it.
Excellent. Well, joining us today, it's good to have Scott Wilkinson from Home Theater Geeks back with us. How's it going, Scott?
Hey, Tom, Brian, how you guys doing?
We're doing very well.
Always good to have you on the show, Scott. You bring in a gravitas that the show otherwise lacks. Thank you.
A gravitas. Thank you very much.
Exactly. Just like that.
Well, I'm always happy to be here. Thank you.
Awesome, man. Well, let's start with the big story. Let's dig right in. Let's serve up a dish of big story.
This just in,
I see what you did there.
story.
It's not as fun if you point it out, Jason.
No, I think it's even more fun. I like it better.
All right, fine.
As long as the audience are on the same page they are.
Yeah, that's true. Dish said to be in talks. This is what we're talking about. Dish Network said to be in talks with Viacom about internet TV. This is a Bloomberg News story, so it's a rumor. When these rumors come from places like Bloomberg and such, though, they tend to have a better chance of being true. And all they're saying is that it's talks. They're not saying they've agreed on anything. But the idea would be that Viacom would allow Dish to offer channels like MTV over the internet as a special package. So you wouldn't have to buy the sports. You wouldn't have to buy other channels. And then Dish might try to get some other networks on board as well.
All right, now, what does that mean when you say you don't have to buy sports? I mean, I know you don't have to buy the sports stations, but as we discussed on the show previously, I can't imagine it'll be a scenario where you don't have to have a Dish subscription. And if you have a Dish subscription, then you're automatically subsidizing the sports networks, as we've already discussed before, right?
No, this is saying your Dish subscription would be to subscribe to this package of channels that are only delivered over the internet, and you will not need to get a dish put on your house. This is not TV everywhere like DirecTV and Comcast and all those have already, and Dish has a version of that as well. This is saying we're going to offer packages over the internet so that you don't have to get cable, you don't have to install a dish, you can just watch these channels wherever you have an internet connection because you're paying to do that, and you won't have to pay the higher rates because we're not going to have an ESPN in this package that we have to subsidize.
That would be amazing. And if anyone could do it, yeah, go ahead, Scott, take it away.
Sorry, I was going to ask. Now, does this mean though that they're going to sell packages like they do now, rather than a la carte, or will you be able to buy MTV and HBO. Now, I know HBO has been the subject of a lot of controversy in this regard, but will you have to buy a package, or can you go a la carte?
Now, it's worth reminding at this point that we don't know what you would have to do because these are just rumors about talks. But the Bloomberg story says the idea is that they would offer this smaller bundle, so it's closer to a la carte, but it's still not being able to say, I only want that, and that.
Yeah,
Right.
okay.
And keep in mind, if anyone's going to be able to pull this off, it's going to be someone like a Dish Network. It takes that third place position, which I assume DirecTV is way bigger than Dish, right? You got
It is.
Time Warner, you got all the cable companies, you got DirecTV, and then you got Dish as a relatively small player. They can afford to take bigger risks and try nuttier things. So I'm glad that they're
Very good
pushing the
point.
envelope in this regard.
Yeah, it's a very good point. I agree.
They're also trying to talk to Univision, the Spanish language networks. There's several of those. And Scripps. Scripps Network owns like Food Network and HGTV and DIY. So I think what they're trying to do is say, hey, let's stay away from Disney. Let's stay away from NBC Universal and Comcast and all those companies that force you to carry all this other stuff. Let's go to a smaller slice and see if we can create a package and then sell it over the internet, because there's less of a risk there. We don't have to go roll a bunch of trucks and install a bunch of hardware and lock people into contracts. We could just kind of turn on the stream, and so the cost of startup might not be as large.
So I think it's pretty clear that all of us are on the same page and that we feel like something like this is inevitable. There's only so long that the current structure can happen. But let's put on our speculation hat. Let's go ahead and throw bets into the ring here. How long until we see something like this actually become available to consumers? 2013, 2014, 2015. What do you say?
Oh, maybe longer. I don't know. Scott, what do you think?
I don't know. I'm thinking the pace of things, of developments that are going on right now is pretty fast. I wouldn't be surprised if we saw it end of like a year from now, or perhaps even into 2014. I don't think it'll be as long as 2015.
I don't know. I don't know that we'll see Dish get Viacom to agree to this that soon. Maybe not. Dish did make an investment of $45 million into Roku, so they're obviously interested in pushing into this arena somehow. So maybe if they don't get Viacom, they get somebody else, and then we see it within a year or two.
Now, I'll bet you a stake, Tom, that at some point in 2013, and of course the chat room will hold us accountable to this if you decide to take me on, sometime in 2013, we're going to have a story about a well-known major cable network who offers an internet-only version of subscription sometime in 2013.
No. I will take you. I will take you on.
Really?
Yeah.
All right.
I do not think that will happen next year. And do you know why I'm willing to take you on so confidently?
Why?
Because I get to buy a steak either way. No, because I have made these kinds of predictions a bunch in our year-end prediction shows, both at Buzz Out Loud and Tech News Today. And whenever I feel like, oh, we're on the verge of this happening and we're starting to hear the rumors and the talks, it's always like twice as long as I think. And I think, like you, that it could happen next year. And so I'm just like, all right, don't trust your gut. Do the gut multiplier.
So you're not so much really voting against me. You're really voting against yourself.
Right, exactly. And I get to eat steak either way.
That's like taking the bet.
Yeah.
Got it.
Now, I think both of you are right in that. I believe that I'll bet you that we'll even see an announcement at CES 2013 about such a service, but it won't actually happen for another year.
Oh, so who wins the bet? That's a good point.
That's a good point, because the point was that it was going to be a story on this show that it's actually happening.
That it's actually happening. So if they announce at CES, you win, is what? I'm comfortable with that. I'm fine with that.
All right.
It doesn't have to launch in 2013. It just has to be announced that it's for sure.
Yeah, like
they're
I said,
working on it. Yeah.
So,
and not
exactly.
a rumor, not a we have partners. They have to say, hey, here's the CEO of Viacom or whoever who's here to say we're partnering up. Yada,
but it's
yada.
gonna be, I'll tell you what it's going to be. It's going to be somebody small and independent, and just as AMC is having a really hard time because it's not part of it.
Wait a minute. Hold on. You get paid by Discovery. Do you don't know something, do you?
Oh my God! Are you really doing this?
I'm just making sure.
No, okay. First of all, you could rest assured never think that Brian Brushwood knows anything. I definitely don't know.
Well, I'm just fending off that, like, oh, so it's Discovery is the partner. Brian knew all along.
Actually, I was predicting if I was going to predict, I would say it's going to be AMC because AMC
and Dish.
They have a lot of trouble because that would be funny if AMC and Dish teamed up in that regard.
Exactly.
AMC being totally independent has been a problem as far as budgeting for a bunch of their shows. As we know, Mad Men got a huge chunk of their budget, and that made it difficult to budget for The Walking Dead and for Breaking Bad. But the flip side of that is because they're not part of a conglomerate, because they're not grouped in with a bunch of other stations, they're free to do nutty, bold things like go out and make their content. And we've already seen they've refused to play ball with Dish Network. So it wouldn't surprise me if within the next year they made some kind of, you know what, just our channel. If we're seriously all you watch on cable, just sign up for $15 a month and you get AMC.
You know, stranger things have happened when companies go against each other because they spend so much time talking that they actually build relationships. And once they resolve the main problem, then they're like, hey, you know, now that we don't hate each other anymore.
Yeah, yes.
We're best buddies.
Yeah. So I wouldn't totally write off that possibility. But we have another big story to talk about.
Stop everything. It's another big story.
The NPD Group, which is one of the better analyst companies out there, did a survey. And granted, it's a survey, but probably statistically reliable. NPD's pretty good at this stuff. That says that more people are watching online video on an actual television than they are on a computer, like a PC or a laptop, and definitely on mobile devices. In fact, almost nobody's watching video on mobile devices. Percentage-wise, I mean, people are watching video, but the percentage of video they're watching on a mobile device is very low. And the percent that they watch on a television is now 45%. 17% on a laptop, 14% on a desktop. So that makes about 31% on PCs in general. It doesn't mean that everybody's watching TV online. It means when you're watching an online video, you're more likely to have it hooked up to your TV. Does this surprise you, Scott?
Not a bit. In fact, I am among the 47%.
As am I.
That watch the online TV on the TV. I mean, I sit at my computer all day, for one thing, and I think this is true of a lot of people. You know, you sit at your computer all day, you don't want to, and then you want to relax and watch some TV. You're not going to sit at your computer and do it. And your laptop, I would never watch video on my cell phone because it's just too darn small. So I do. I go in my room and my theater, and I watch it on a big screen TV. Now, granted, the quality problems of online TV become more apparent on a big screen. But, you know, you just go, either you just accept that or you get an external processor, or you buy a TV that's got a good processor in it that'll upscale it nicely. And there are plenty of companies that are working on doing exactly that. So we're going to see better and more improved video quality in streamed content in the future than we have currently. So this trend is only going to continue, in my opinion.
I say there are two problems with this story as it's presented here. The first problem is that because it's a survey, you're having people self-report on how they watch their television. What does that even mean? You watch it on your television. My primary display in my office is a 37-inch HD TV that I watch things at 1080p. Does that mean, you know, well, do I put it as a PC or as a television?
You would count in this story as someone who has connected their computer to a television, because they actually broke out like the most common ways people connect, and game consoles were the most common. Computers hooked up, I think, were third or fourth.
Here's the other thing is we don't know if the survey was such that you could pick more than one option, because I think a lot of people watch it many different ways. And if it was
you could pick one. You could pick more than one.
You could.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Well, in that case, explain to me, Tom, why tablets received less than 1% of this vote in this survey.
People just aren't watching a lot of video on tablets, I guess. I don't know. Or it surprises me that it's so low.
I can't believe it. Like, to me, that one moment.
I know, because I watch a lot of video on tablets. Maybe not so much like you, Scott, on a phone. Like, maybe every once in a while a short YouTube video or a movie trailer that I have to see, I'll watch on my phone. I avoid video on my phone. But a tablet, I would think that would be higher, too.
Yeah. Well,
certainly higher than 1%.
Yeah. Agreed. So we'll see. I mean, who knows what it means? But
nobody has tablets.
It's still is.
I think this is another. We talk a lot about the little, like, the mileposts along the road to internet television, and I think this is an important one. That change of people saying, "Oh, web video. That's the video I watch on YouTube on my computer." when I'm sitting at my computer desk or I'm at work on my desktop computer, to saying like, oh, online video. Yeah, I get that on my television. No matter how it is, whether it's AirPlay from a tablet or Xbox 360 or a computer hooked up to your television as a monitor, they're saying, I want to see it big. I want to see it the way I watch regular television. Once that consumer pressure starts happening, which this indicates it is, now the companies have to start taking notice and going, hey, people are doing this. Maybe we should be trying to be the ones that they watch when they do that.
Well, and a couple of things. First of all, obviously, you know, they didn't survey the children of the people who they surveyed, because I'm sure all of them watch nothing but tablets. And then, and second of all, it's I just can't 1%. Given how much, I mean, think about the Kindle Fire announcements where they're showing you can watch movies on it. Think about the iPad announcements, you can watch movies on it. You're telling me that all of that together only totals less than 1% of video viewing?
You know, I think 1% is too low, but I don't think people want to watch a lot of video on 7-inch, 10-inch tablets. I think they want to see it bigger.
But like, we bought Hulu Plus just so my wife could watch Teen Wolf on her iPad.
Well,
and
but
like,
by that logic, then most people should be magicians.
Okay, well, no, I'm just saying, really, among the benefits of Hulu Plus is that you can watch it on your tablet.
No, I know.
Somebody who did that. We never once used Hulu Plus on our television. We only did it for the tablets.
I see what you're saying, and I am surprised that it is so low. But I'm still not surprised that it's behind these other ways of doing it. I think that's I've heard a lot of people go, watch a video on my tablet. Why would I ever want to do that? It's so small.
Right.
So,
well, I guess my only hesitation is to herald this as some kind of triumph of the internet-connected television, because I got it.
Smart TVs are actually lowest on the list. It's actually hooking up other things, including computers, which is kind of the wonkiest way of doing it.
Right.
But Xbox 360s, Roku devices, Apple TVs, those all lead the way.
Interesting.
And I think AirPlay.
As they should. As they should.
Yeah, I agree. Well, speaking of kids, let's move on to the slipstream. Because the slipstream is the section of the show where we talk about the streaming services you use. And our first story is about Netflix adding the Just for Kids mode to the iPad app so that parents can just point their kids into that section and let them run. You guys talked about this on Tech News Today. I wasn't there this morning because of a jury duty. So did you get a chance to talk about it?
I'm sorry, just pick a card real quick. Just a second there.
Yeah, got it. Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. Yes, we did talk about it, and I'm in love with this. I think this is a fabulous advancement. It's what's making possible my kids not driving me insane, and for me feeling good about them going nuts on Netflix. I'll tell you what, man. My 4-year-old cannot read, but she can turn on the iPad, find the Netflix icon. She knows to click the Just for Kids icon because she learned it from using the Xbox, and she's able to find the shows that she wants, and she doesn't have to bug me once. Absolutely love it.
And you don't have to worry about her stumbling across something you didn't want her to see.
Untoward. Well, and as I was explaining on TNT, the problem, of course, is, you know, kids just go by images, and for the most part, they like to rewatch the same kind of content over and over again. But, you know, I don't want her stumbling across a Fritz the Cat trying to look for a Tom and Jerry is the problem, you know, or I don't want her watching Ghost in the Shell or Akira. I mean, not that either of those are necessarily on Netflix, but you see the problem there is with some kind of colorful box art, I'm afraid that she's going to end up clicking or something. And it always made me uncomfortable because, like, I like bizarre documentaries and you know, a lot of rated R documentary stuff. Like, for example, this film is not yet rated. It was always awkward as I scrolled through all the kids shows that there's this clearly naked woman's body being branded with an R, which is the cover for that particular documentary.
That's the Martin Spurlock one, right?
No, I don't think Morgan Spurlock had anything to do with that one. It was a bunch of people who had like a vendetta against the MPAA, and they wanted to unmask him. It was really weird.
Oh,
we talked
I see. Okay.
ago on Frame Rate.
Yeah.
I wanted to ask you, Brian, you have the Just for Kids icon. There's probably the regular Netflix icon too. Are they clearly distinguishable? And what's to prevent your daughter from clicking on the other one?
Oh, well, I'll show you right now. Let me actually go to Netflix right now, and we'll see. Hopefully, I'm logged in.
I've got my daughter right here.
Yeah. So in this case, actually, you can see my queue here. Recently watched. My kids obviously dominate my
Sure,
my feed.
it's your kids.
That cue
Brody.
looks familiar to me.
So it's like the kids love Felix the cat. What if they ran across, Fritz the cat? That would be bad. Normally, it's very big, and it says, I guess on the PC it's a little bit different, but on the Xbox there are two icons. One just says Netflix, the other one has a colorful for kids thing, and then they just go and they pick the picture of the character that they want to see, and it makes sense, and the kids understand it. Like here, I'm going to pick Curious George, and then and it just says, continue where you left it off.
It's very cool. I watch Netflix on the Boxy Box usually, and when you launch the app, it asks, do you want the regular or do you want the just for kids? For me, it was a little. It's one more step that I don't need to take because I don't have any kids. But I'm sure that for those who have kids, it's a very good thing, and I do applaud it.
Or for those who are young at heart. They might be.
Young at heart. I actually like Shaun the Sheep.
Yeah, right? See? Barnes & Noble, speaking of watching video on 7-inch tablets, which I was maligning earlier, Barnes & Noble launching Nook Video this fall, get some help from HBO, Sony, Disney, Viacom, the usual suspects. So you may not have realized this, but the Barnes & Noble Nook, which they just refreshed with new models, was able to play video, but there was not a Nook Video store. You had to sideload it. So it was not as easy as on an Amazon or an Android or an iOS device, but now it will be. They'll be launching this fall so that you'll be able to download and rent videos to watch on the Nook. And I guess that brings back up this question of how many people are doing this. I wasn't trying to say nobody's doing this because obviously you sit on any airplane and you see plenty of people watching video on tablets.
Yeah, and well, again, I don't want to talk necessarily about the survey, but here's what does fascinate me is on the one hand, this is an obvious step for Barnes & Noble to do, and the Nook is a decent media player, and it's actually one of the better ways. For example, my ebook, the Scam School book, after the iPad, the Nook is the second place experience, but I am utterly shocked that they took so long to get to this point. Do you think it's where they're just too late? They're not going to capture any market share?
Scott, you said
I think it could. I think they are very late to the game. So unless they do it in a much better, different way, I can't see how they would capture much market share.
Well, the one nice thing that they're doing is ultraviolet. And as much as there are problems with that system, it is a perk to say when you buy a Barnes & Noble Nook video, it's now ultraviolet, and it's in your ultraviolet locker.
And you actually own it, and you could take it to other devices and other platforms and watch it wherever you want.
Right. So that is a good point. That is a very good point. Despite the fact that ultraviolet has had problems in the past, I believe they are being worked out, and it has become a much easier thing to do than it has in the past. So that is, there you go. There's a differentiating feature right there.
But is it enough?
No. Spoiler alert.
Scott's like like me. His mother taught him if you can't say anything nice, don't say anything at all.
Say it for you. No, you're too late, Barnes & Noble. I'm sorry.
Rupert
Let Brian be our avatar there.
Rupert Murdoch is cut a deal, or at least his company, 20th Century Fox Studios, cut a deal to sell and rent movies on YouTube and Google Play. So your iOS device can now take advantage of all the awesome 20th Century Fox movies like Prometheus.
Possible. That's not possible.
Why is that not possible? What's wrong, Brian? This is just another big studio cut a deal with a service. Why is this so?
But Rupert Murdoch said Google was the beginning of piracy.
Oh, right. This would be like they cut a deal with Viacom, which is probably going to happen next.
It also never happened.
They're like,
except it totally will.
That deal, you know what's so funny about that deal? I almost guarantee you, and I don't know anything in particular, but I almost guarantee you that there are certain people in Viacom who are just chomping at the bit for that court case with YouTube to be resolved so that they can strike a deal with the Google Play and the YouTube Store to get their stuff in there because they want to make money off of it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And that's why that's why I don't know, I always react negatively to anyone blowing anything one person says out of proportion because everybody says stupid crap that they don't mean or that they poorly phrase. And the problem with media is they latch onto that one phrase and then it's like, well, now I'm the guy who said that. Great. So it's like when somebody goes back on that, it's like, whatever, you shouldn't have believed it to begin. Don't believe anyone on anything ever. Brian Brushwood, put that on it.
Brushwood
Good name.
2012. Don't believe
Yeah,
everything ever.
Good title for this show, by the way.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I think so. I think if we can write that down, Jason. Yeah. All right, good. Meanwhile, I think it's time for Tube Tops. Tube Tops section of the show where we talk about the things on top of where your tube would have been if you had a tube machine, but they're all flat screens now. So it's kind of like a retro name.
It's actually post-ironic hipsterism. It's our little nod to the West Coast.
Right.
Specifically the Oakland area.
While you're drinking your single origin espresso, you can talk about Tube Tops.
Yeah, in fact, PBR was our original tube top.
$6 PBR.
Should be devices instead.
So SmartStick by Favy is bringing Android to your HD TV for $50. Now, thanks to Steve for pointing this out, I think on Twitter. It's not as cool as the Roku streaming stick, but it works with any HDMI port, and it's a lot cheaper. The difference being that the Roku streaming stick is powered by that port, the MHL port, but you have to have an MHL port. This one's not, which means, yeah, it's powered by USB, so you got to plug it in to a USB port to power it, as well as to the HDMI port. But otherwise, it's about the same size. It runs Android, which means for $50, you get anything that is available on the Android platform.
So amazing, man. I love seeing more creativity. And it's like the marketplace of ideas is built upon 1,000 corpses of failed products. And maybe this will be yet another corpse, but I'm glad that it's helping to build the platform.
Yeah, Scott, what do you think of this idea? I mean, the idea of the Roku streaming stick and obviously the SmartStick is you just plug a little thing in the side or on the back, and then you don't have to see it. You don't have this. You don't have a box on top of your tube. It's just.
So I guess what this does is it overlays its user interface onto the TV.
Yeah, it's basically like hooking up a Roku box to your HDMI port, but instead of a box, it's a little stick.
Well, I like it. I think the Roku stick's $100. As you said, this one's $50.
Yeah, exactly. So it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. Oh, it is a lot cheaper. Although the difference between $50 and $100 is not the same as the difference between $500 and $1,000. I mean, it is, but it isn't, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. But I don't like the fact that you have to plug it into an HDMI port and then take a cable and plug that into a USB port. That's
a little wonky. Actually, MacFile says it can also be powered from AC/DC. So I guess if you play Back in Black, that will also power it.
It's powered.
No, I think he means you could plug an AC port. You could power it that way too. Just plug it into
It's still another cable.
Yeah.
But you're right that the Roku box requires MHL and it gets power from MHL, which is great. But there aren't that many products that have an MHL port yet.
Well, and that's the flip side, right? Like you can either complain that not everything has MHL, or you can complain that it's kludgy to plug one thing into a USB port and the other one into HDMI. But you can't do both, right? Unless you could just want to sit there and pout. Are you just going to sit there and pout?
I'm just going to sit here and pout.
Okay.
Hey, who wants new Sling boxes?
Only if they have unprecedented high definition available to me anywhere in the world.
Yeah, now I've got the oldest Slingbox HD they ever made. The first one they ever made. And I've been
number one. Huh?
Yeah, well, maybe not the first box that rolled off the assembly line, but sometimes it feels like it. I've been waiting to upgrade it till they got 1080p. And there's boxes that are found on the shelf in Best Buy that were posted up on That's Not Funny. I didn't say which Best Buy store it was, but they showed two new models of Slingbox. One reportedly capable of 1080p streaming, which is the highest resolution Slingbox has provided. They also have built-in Wi-Fi. No mention of a tuner or anything crazy like that, but...
Now, so here's the thing is, and I wonder if this is a misstep for our friends over at Slingbox, because what we talk about convenience trumping fidelity all the time, right? And how you want two different experiences. If you want high def television, what you do is you sit in your living room where everything is engineered to give you the highest quality experience. If you want a convenient way to check in on something, you expect to watch it on your smartphone or something crappy. Like what? To the consumer, and I understand like if there's a need for it, you want to at least make it available, even if only to encourage people to buy the cheaper version. But it just doesn't seem to me like I would ever use a 1080p solution when I'm on the go.
Oh,
the
why
other
not?
question, Well, the question for me regarding 1080p on the go is, what kind of bandwidth do you have in your hotel or wherever you are? Can you even stream 1080p?
Although, actually,
Or
for that, I will do the flip. Now that I got the iPhone 5, the LTE is insane. 42.
And you got Verizon?
No, I got AT&T, but it's still.
See, with Verizon, you could do the hotspot without paying extra.
Oh, Joe, you Verizon. But then I would have to use it to watch video because I'd be paying every 2 or 3 gigabytes or whatever it is.
You'd use up a nice little chunk of your bandwidth. That's true.
Seriously.
Yeah.
And you got a cap, right? I mean, most plans now have a cap, and so you would run out of that cap very fast at 1080p.
You just have to buy a bigger cap.
There you go.
Or just wear a cap.
All cap, no bandwidth. That's what they say.
Beatmaster in the chat room is making an important point. How much upload speed do you have at home when you're on the go?
No, that is an important point. I actually have a nice 10 gigabits per second, but it's not as much as my download. So that'd be nice. I still would like to have, even for just around the house. We actually use the iPad to sling television out to our garage because we have an exercise machine out there. So instead of having another television set up out there, it's a way to watch home TV in other parts of the house. That wouldn't be as big of a deal as far as upload and download.
Oh, you know what? Da Vinci Wonder in the chat room is pointing out that the Sling Player app on a Google TV, if you are doing it, especially,
there we go,
be extremely valuable. Yeah, that's
true
good.
too. Oh, by the way, MacFile, who mentioned the AC port for the streaming stick that we were talking about, is a lady. I said a guy. She corrected me.
I love guys and bros and dudes as general neutral tones. I call everyone.
That's because you're a guy.
Well, okay. That's because you're part of I forget whatever.
Hey, I'm excited about the Simple TV. Now, we've had a lot of release dates kind of flying around, but they finally clarified. They sent a note to all their backers, and there's a story about it on Engadget, that they will begin shipping units to the people who backed their Kickstarter starting October 10th. So that's just 9 days away. Not that far.
That seems way soon. I did not expect it to be that soon. But then again, I don't expect anything I contribute to on Kickstarter to ever come out ever.
Now, here's the thing. I've got a dilemma, and I think Simple TV is going to solve it.
All right.
We have DirecTV at home. We're not quite ready to ditch it because mostly HBO, but also Dexter just started on Showtime. And you just can't get those shows in a timely fashion, in legal fashion any other way. But the bedroom DirecTV, which we almost never use, has been on the fritz. And we only use it really to store stuff that we then stream into the living room. So instead of calling DirecTV and having them come out and roll a truck and repair it and possibly have to pay a repair bill because I'm out of my 1-year contract, blah, 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 I was thinking of just canceling that box and putting Simple TV in the bedroom.
Well, what's your dilemma then? That sounds like you have a solution.
Okay, it's not a dilemma at all. It's solved. So I'm not crazy. There's nothing.
No, I think that sounds great. I know. See, this is how long you've been trained to assume you need a DirecTV box in your other room. It's like, but now
I think it's that part of it's actually that part of being the Midwesterner who's like, oh, so instead of fixing it, you're just throwing it out.
Yep. Well, yeah. And the answer is yes. It's exactly what you're doing. And it's exactly what you should do. Plus, think about this long-term strategy. This is how you convince Eileen that maybe you can cut the cord.
You're boiling the frog is what you're saying.
That's what I'm saying. I did not call your wife a frog for the record.
Nor are you advocating boiling her. Scott, am I crazy or is Brian right?
Well, I have to tell you, I don't know of the Simple TV. Can you tell me quickly what it is?
I'm sorry. Simple TV, and probably there's people in the audience have the same question. It's a device that works as a DVR for over-the-air.
Okay.
And then feeds the video to an app. They've got some apps going to come out for mobile platforms, but the best part is the Roku. They have a Roku app that's been approved, and it'll be in the Roku store so that you can use the Roku to get your over-the-air TV.
Well, that's very cool, but how's that going to solve your Dexter and HBO problem?
Because we'll have the living room DirecTV for the HBO and the Dexter, but we won't be filling it up with stuff because we'll use the Simple TV to record the over-the-air, the broadcast TV stuff, and we'll use the Roku to stream it, so they don't even have to be in the same room.
Wow, that's very cool. That's very cool. People ask me all the time about over-the-air DVRs, and usually I have to say, well, TiVo, but that's expensive. Channel Master doesn't work necessarily so well. Here's another alternative. I can't wait to try it.
Yeah, I can't wait to try it too. It's October 10th is when it's coming. ZBox is a UK second screen app that everybody's very excited about because it's coming to the United States, and NBC, Universal, and Comcast, as subsidiaries of the larger Comcast, have both partnered with it and invested in it. So there'll be a Comcast cable version of it and also an NBC network version of it as well. We talked about it on Tech News Today last week, and the big discussion was, I think the same discussion we're going to have, which is, okay, it looks like a really nifty thing if that's what you want to do, but does anybody want to do this?
Yeah, I've said this before. I think that all of television is onto something with the second screen experience. I think it's got to be something fundamental from everything I'm seeing, because ZBox, at the core of it, doesn't sound like it's offering anything you couldn't get just by surfing the web, correct?
Yeah, okay, so they've got the backing of 30 broadcasters, and they'll integrate Twitter and social and Facebook. And while you're watching, it'll automatically prompt you with things. But I mean, it's probably getting a lot of buzz because it has the best interface I've seen of most of these. It's very clean. But I have a Twitter app and I have an IMDb app. What more do I need?
Well, I'll tell you what you need. And I've said this before, and I'm going to stop saying it because it's going to be honest, I ought to patent this idea and make it my own. What people want is access and intimacy with the stars they see on the screen, and a second screen experience is a perfect way to do that. If you can get the actual talent to participate real time through a second screen app, that is worth loading any app onto your iPad, your Android, or whatever other device.
It does have a program guide, so it can be used as a remote with Comcast cable.
Yeah. Well, and again, we've talked about this, and I'm seeing chatter in the chat room saying that the Wii U is going to be awful, and I just don't believe it. I think that that Nintendo is very good at their simplicity for that kind of thing. I think that will surprise people and has a chance to become like the definitive second screen experience.
Scott, what do you think of these second screen apps?
Well, I think Brian's got a great idea, and he should, in fact, patent it. If they could get the talent to participate. But I've always thought that the second screen experience, the most value there is for watching things like Dexter and these shows that you do, in fact, watch while they're being broadcast up by satellite or cable or over the air or whatever, and then communicating with your friends who are sharing that same experience at the same time. And for that, you don't need any kind of special app, as you said, Tom. I think you've got a Twitter app.
You know what, Scott? We've made you stream so long on Twit that your headset is now starting to give static.
We have uncovered you as a Cylon, and as such, you will be ejected from the airlock in 3 minutes, unless you.
2, 1. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I know exactly what to do here. You're
going to conquer us and enslave humanity.
A couple times.
Puny humans. Hang on 1 second.
He's just going to unplug and plug back in. I'm sorry to interrupt you, Scott, because I liked the point you were making, but it was starting to fade in the static. Oh yeah, you sound good now.
There we go. Yeah, we're good.
So this is interesting. I'm using the Heil USB-Q headphone and mic interface to the computer. And this is my second one. And so far for my hour-long show, it hasn't been a problem like the first one was. So now we've discovered that as we get into the second hour, it might cause a bit of a problem.
At the hour 40 mark, apparently. But go ahead.
Anyway.
Finish your point.
Yeah, as I was saying, I see the most value there in being able to communicate with your friends and saying, oh, did you believe that the Desperate Housewife just did that or whatever? And that's, I think, where one of the real values is. The other one is to gather more information about something that you've seen on the screen. You can go to IMDb. As you said, you have an IMDb app, and that's perfectly fine. So there are plenty of apps now that will do these things. I guess the thing that I'd like to see is have some sort of app that integrates gathering more information about the show you're watching and communicating with your friends about it in real time while you're watching it, making it a communal experience even though you're not in the same room.
Very good. Last of our Tube Top stories, Verizon and Fios have settled their patent dispute. TiVo gets a bunch of money. Verizon is going to pay them through July 2018 hundreds of millions of dollars. And They have provisions in the settlement for commercial cooperation, including the upcoming Redbox Instant service, which Verizon is a partner in, appearing on TiVo DVRs, possibly.
Is this exactly the kind of thing you were just saying, Tom?
Maybe this was in my head when I was thinking of that, but it is exactly that, isn't it?
They finally get to a resolution, and then one of them says, oh, also we get married. And then they're like, yeah.
Yeah, we know each other so well right now. Why not?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So look for that. I mean, that's good news for TiVo and for Verizon, actually. It's a win-win.
Absolutely.
Positive sum game.
Business makes strange bedfellows, for sure.
It sure does. Let's move on to Film Foul. Film Foul, all about the things you watch on the tube-top boxes that use the services from the slipstream. It's the whole point of all of this.
Boy, did that ever make things eloquent?
Yeah.
Never was that spoken so clearly,
Like
Tom.
Shakespeare, wasn't it?
Nice segue.
YouTube will be airing the presidential debates live on its elections page in partnership with ABC News. I thought they did a pretty good job at the convention, so I just kind of wanted to throw that out there. If you're looking for another way to watch these debates, if you're interested in the presidential debates in the U.S.
There's two flavors I love. It's partisan bickering and YouTube comments. And the chance to bring them together, this is huge.
How about this?
Talk about a second screen experience.
Right. How about this? Twitter teaming up with Ron Howard for a movie inspired by tweets.
Now, this is interesting because if you read it, because it makes it sound like it's some kind of epic adventure, but it sounds like this is what, Biz Stone's adventure, right?
Yeah, it's actually Biz. Biz is still on the board for Twitter, but he's not like a daily employee anymore. But apparently he's teaming up with Ron Howard to try to figure out a feedback-inspired movie. The project has Ron Howard on board.
It sounds to me like this is an opportunity for Biz Stone to pursue an artistic venture that appeals to him, and it seems like an excuse for him to use what appears to be a friendship with Ron Howard, and who knows, maybe we'll get something good out of it in the meantime. But unfortunately, the press release just ends up kind of breathlessly explaining this as a new frontier of movie making, which I don't know if it will be, but it will be interesting to look at.
Well, you know what? Yeah, I think you're right. It's good for Biz Stone. It's good for Ron Howard. We'll have to see if it ends up being good for us as viewers.
Yes, exactly.
I have my doubts.
Yeah. We'll see. Meanwhile, if you can fit the URL into your address bar, AMC TV has webisodes for Walking Dead Season 3 out.
What's funny is I double-checked that when I pasted that in. I was like, holy crap, that really is the URL. But basically, if you go to AMC TV, I'm sure you can find links to it. But your friend of mine, Bill Meeks, pointed out to us that behind that advertisement telling you to screw Dish is the Season 3 webisodes. It looks like there's 4 of them now for The Walking Dead. I have not gotten a chance to take a look at these. I only saw these earlier today. But how do you feel about these, with them being supplemental content like this?
I like webisodes. I always forget to go watch them until the season is over, though. So I was glad to see this in the lineup because I'm like, oh, you know what? I really should try to watch these before The Walking Dead starts.
Now, I'll tell you what I did watch were the webisodes for Breaking Bad, and they were exceptional. They were little tight vignettes that had their own content and humor with the supplemental characters. You saw Badger going on an adventure trying to figure out how to get in to steal something or other. And so I just don't know with Walking Dead, because it looks like these are all new characters, and I'm sure they'll tie in to the new season. But you know where I'm at with Walking Dead right now. Walking Dead's on probation for me right now.
And the webisodes aren't changing your mind?
No, well, I'm not going to watch them because they're on probation. They have to convince me.
I see. And I almost forgot, Jason, I'm sorry, I skipped past this. An online video series funded by YouTube, YouTube's been funding all these series, like Sword and Laser, for instance, is being turned into a syndicated TV show to run on ABC. Everyday Health was doing a series called Recipe Rehab on its YouTube channel, and it is now contracted to make a 30-minute version of the show, which will appear on nearly all the stations affiliated with Walt Disney's ABC. So it's going to have a run on the local stations, probably in the afternoons. I would guess it's one of those kinds of things. But a pretty big deal to see one of these finally flying and being free.
Going in the opposite direction as normal.
Well, and we've seen a little bit of a hint of that with spoilers. Spoilers, of course, on Hulu, and it got picked up by Canadian television.
Oh, that's true,
But I'm telling you, the more of this bottom-up transition that we can see, the better it's going to be for the credibility for new media.
All right, let's check in on the winter movie draft. Ooh, it's like a snow globe. Look at that. Now, Byron, I know on Twitter you've expressed that you hate this part of the show, so we're just going to give you leave. Just skip ahead. It's
skip ahead.
It's okay. We don't hold it against you.
You don't have to like movies.
You don't have to like the movie draft. It's fine. Looper did not do as well as maybe Brian would have liked it to do.
God, you're killing me, Tom. You're just punching me in the chest repeatedly. Can you believe? Okay, two things. First of all, Looper came in with the opening weekend, $20 million. Hotel Transylvania had $42 million. I paid $14 for Looper because I want to love it. And you saw it, Tom. I can't wait to hear about it. But meanwhile, Father Robert only paid $11, and he got $42 million for it. So that was smart. But I'll tell you what, out on the road, John Tilton pointed out something to me that somehow we all missed. And I now know for a fact who's going to be the winner of the movie draft.
What did he see that we all missed? What's going on? Who's going to win?
Well, let me put it this way. Whoever it is the one who bought Rise of the Guardians. Because Rise of the Guardians went for $8.
Yeah, baby.
And do you know what that movie is projected to make?
I do.
Between 160 and 200 million.
And do you know how you all mocked me when I was bidding on it?
You quietly knew the entire time.
That was I'm like, this is going to be the most undervalued movie in the draft. I am totally stealing it.
I had you all with Lincoln at $11, but you got all of us with Rise of the Guardians at $8. I'm telling you, whoever's playing in the chat realm, if you don't have that, you're screwed.
I have to say, these kids' movies are constantly underrated in our movie drafts, and I shouldn't tell people that because eventually you'll catch on. But and on top of it, one called Rise of the Guardians, everyone thinks it's like Clash of the Titans.
Yeah, but it's about Santa Claus.
Exactly.
It is the only Santa Claus movie this entire holiday season.
Frankenweenie and Taken 2 come out this weekend. Frankenweenie owned by Father Robert, and Taken 2, Justin Robert Young. So those are both medium level. They should do fairly well, but they're the first one in the game for Justin Robert Young, and Father Robert is ahead, so he'll probably be a little farther ahead by the end of this week.
Yeah, the only chance I have is if Loopers get some good word of mouth, and I'm going to ask you about that when we talk about what we're watching.
Well, let's talk about what we're watching.
What we're watching.
Byron, you can come back now. So, Looper saw it on Saturday.
Tell me about it.
Violated one of, and this is not much of a spoiler. If you don't want to be spoiled in the very least, then you might want to turn away. But it violated one of the time travel principles that I personally don't like, which is being able to change your own timeline. I'm fine with like alternate timelines being spawned and being able to move between timelines. So Spock in the Abrams Star Trek, he comes from another timeline. And so when they changed the past, it didn't change his memories. It didn't change who he was. He was just a Spock from the alternate timeline. Looper is this thing where, like, oh, as things change in the past, Bruce Willis's memories start to change. I don't really like that trope. But once
I agree.
I don't mind it at all. And I'll tell you where I enjoyed it the most was in that cute movie Frequency. I thought it was adorable the way that, like, they'd make a change and then it'd be just kind of like you could almost feel like stuff kind of melting to right itself, and he could half remember the old timeline like a dream. But now he's like, no, wait, no, yeah, mom died. That's right.
You know, Frequency handled it probably the best that I've seen. But I don't like the idea usually. But if you set that aside, I thought Looper was fantastic. I think Joseph
Gordon-Levitt.
Joseph Michelle Gellar, Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I think he did a fantastic job trying to play young Bruce Willis. Bruce Willis was a great Bruce Willis, and he even had a little Die Hardish scene in there that felt like an homage. And I liked the story. I thought it was handled well. I thought it was compellingly told. They didn't dwell on parts they could have spent way too much time on. They kept it moving, and the way it ended, I'm not going to spoil anything, was satisfying to me.
Well,
Now,
awesome. Go ahead.
Tom, let me ask you a question. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I've seen the trailers on TV, and it looks just awful. And from the trailers, how is your?
I don't even know you. On our show, I can't even watch this.
He likes the trailers, Scott.
Obviously, I mean, to me, it's so ridiculous that the primary use of time travel in the future is by the mob to kill people. I mean, come on,
because time travel is outlawed.
Yeah, so only the outlaws have time travel. Okay, all right.
So only outlaws will time travel.
Exactly.
I don't know. That seems a little.
You're against time travel control. I understand.
No, I want to be able to time travel, man.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, no, it makes sense. It makes perfect sense in the movie. Another nice touch they did is instead of trying to make 2044, which is the part Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character inhabits, instead of trying to make it look too futuristic, they made everything either poor. So it made sense if you saw fairly modern-looking things, because by 2044, the poor people will be using the old stuff, which is our current stuff.
Right.
And they had a lot of retro fashions. So fashions from the 50s, fashions from the 60s recurring, which happens all the time. So you're like, oh, okay, so that's just another revival with a spin. Which really, there was never that part that took me out of it, because I'm like, ooh, that's kind of a weird futuristic thing. It really felt like a believable future.
Except that the rich people in the future would have futuristic things. Did they show any of that?
You don't see a whole lot of rich people. It just the story is told.
Look at modern fashion nowadays with all the fluorescent Wayfarer-style Ray-Ban goggles, or sunglasses. You would think it's 1987 right now.
We're living the 80s right now, yeah.
Fashion goes in cycles, so it would make sense. I think that's cool.
Other time travel shows that I watched this week: Doctor Who's mid-season finale, the last episode with Amy Pond and Rory, was good. I had some real problems with Stephen Moffat's use of the Weeping Angels. This is their third time. I think it's their third, maybe their fourth, along. And they're so much better than the way he used them, including specifically the way he used the Statue of Liberty, which I just thought was stupid. But the ending was perfect. It was heart-wrenching, and it was a lovely goodbye and a very unique way to wrap up Amy Pond's story that I liked.
Awesome, man.
So there. Fringe premiered, which is awesome, and it's now taking place in the Fringe's future. So on the Sons of Anarchy.
Well, I was going to ask, is this the final season for Fringe? Is that established?
Yes, this is the final season for Fringe.
So I did watch Sons of Anarchy, and this was
made you cry Tears of Steel? Or is that no? That's a separate show. Okay, I'm sorry.
You'll find out about my Tears of Steel in just a moment. But Sons of Anarchy did something interesting. I did not know there was a hype engine built around this particular episode. Apparently, leading up to this episode, they made it very clear, like, we are going to kill one of the following 5 characters. And they were all 5 major characters, none of which had any established conflict that you would expect them to die in an episode. So for me, just watching it out of the blue, it was sort of like they took a major character, and then this guy's just like, no, something happened, if guy or girl, this person, I use guy, gender neutral. You already know that about.
We know this, yes.
This person just does something and then totally dies. It was a shocker, and it was shockingly graphic. It was full on, like, it was one of those, like, we want to convince you this is not a dream sequence or anything, even though Sons of Anarchy doesn't do that. But, like, you see the blow strike, and you see, like, maybe 2 frames of full on brain guts, and you're like, yeah, that person's definitely dead. So there's that. Separately, have you heard of Tears of Steel? Do you know what this is?
No, I don't.
No, me neither.
So it turns out there's 3D rendering software called Blender that's all open
I know Blender.
source. It's fantastic stuff, right? The
Sure.
Blender Foundation created a 3D short movie, or I guess they're live actors, but it was crowdfunded using the open source engine that for Blender that they do. They released all the, hold on, it says here, the film itself, all raw material used for making it have been released under the Creative Commons Attributions license. So you're able to go and get the assets and use all these things to remix it as you like. But it's like the acting. I mean, there are a couple of problems with the acting, as you might expect. But it's an surprisingly poignant, way far out there short. And I don't think I'm necessarily giving a spoiler here, but I just want to get to where all the best graphics are. But there's this incredible, it's unreal. It's unlike anything I've seen. And the fact that it's all being created mainly to promote this tool and its viability out there, and the fact that they're allowing everything to be used in other projects as well, it's really a cool thing. Check out Tears of Steel. In fact, actually, now that I've seen it, I got a little goosebumps just looking at this. Wow. Definitely go look up Tears of Steel out there. I love what they're doing out there.
Cool. Scott, there anything particularly cool you want to tell us about you've been watching?
Well, as a matter of fact, something not cool. We went and saw End of Watch. Or should I say we went and saw the first 15 minutes of End of Watch.
Ooh.
We walked out.
Wow. Not bad. What was End of Watch about?
It's a police drama by the same guy who did Training Day, which I thought was a good movie.
I like Training Day.
Yeah, I did too. So I thought this would be pretty cool. So we went. It's basically the first 15 minutes anyway. I can't speak to the rest of the film, but it's all handheld, so I was getting kind of dizzy. And every other word was F or S. Every other word, literally.
Yeah, you'd think they would just go ahead and swear instead of just saying the first letters. That's annoying.
Yeah, exactly. Well, this is a family-friendly show. What can I say?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying.
But that plus the handheld camera action and just it was just, my wife leaned over to me and said, "I'm not enjoying this yet. Are you?" I said, "No." Yeah. I said, "No, let's get out of here." So we left. So
you said F this S, and you got out of it.
Exactly. So fortunately, the theater actually refunded our money, so that was good.
Oh, that's good. Good for them.
But, it got a good review even in a variety of places. So I was kind of surprised at that. So my recommendation is a thumbs down for sure.
Wow.
Gotcha.
All
right.
Now, people are pointing out in the chat room that it's got an 85% positive reviews on Rotten Tomatoes. So I don't know. That's interesting.
Couldn't tell you.
Well, I add one more rotten tomato to the pile then.
Rotten tomato.
Let's finish up with some feedback.
Now it's time for feedback with Brian and Tom on Frame Rate. Oh, yeah.
This one comes from Jason Scott in Sacramento, California. It says, Tom and Jason, the Xbox 360. Tom and Jason. Brian and Tom. But Jason, you should listen to this too. The Xbox 360 has the same DVR option as the future Wii U console. Have you all forgot if you use Windows Media Center and Windows 7, you can access your Windows Media Center DVD recordings and live TV through your Xbox 360 Slim after you set everything up by way of syncing in that security code thingy, but it still works?
So, okay, that's all you need to say. To be honest, that's as far as I read of this letter, because instantly I thought, just replace all those words with, this is all stuff your PC can do. Haven't you ever configured Linux and set up a Myth PC? I don't understand what the big deal is.
Actually, it's much easier than that. Much easier than that. Xbox 360, with the click of a button, if you have a Windows desktop running, will take everything off your Windows desktop. But go ahead.
No, I mean, but that's right. But you're talking to someone. I already have Play On as a service that allows me to take content that's on my desktop and stream it over. But it's like even that, and I'm somebody who's predisposed to be techie about this whole thing, but it's just kludgy enough. And it's like it matters if it takes 3 more button clicks or 2 more menus or whatever. Like, interface matters. That's the reason Apple's become the #1 computer company in the world, is because they understand that the barrier between your desire to watch content and the ability for you to be seeing it on the screen you want has to be as small as possible. And I don't believe that the Xbox 360 experience is anywhere comparable to what Wii U is promising. Now, maybe that Wii U is full of BS and this turns out to be all marketing hype anyway, in which case, it's all the same crap and who cares. But as far as what they're promising, they are promising something different and better than what you could do on the 360.
Well, I couldn't agree with you more about user interface and how important it is to the success of a given system.
Absolutely.
Cassie Barnes got a Roku just to use Aereo, the over-the-air, over-the-internet service that's only available in New York City right now, and says, unfortunately, I'm a bit disappointed. Here are the reasons. The sit-back experience. I bought a Roku. I made the assumption that I just plug in the Roku, log into Aereo, and be able to browse channels with my remote control. This is unfortunately not the case. The Roku app merely acts as a receiver for the Aereo signal, which has to be controlled on some other device. Right now, supported devices are limited to the iPad and iPhone, of which I own neither, and Safari on a Mac. Essentially, that means my sit-back experience involves me sitting with my Mac on my lap to browse the guide, find my show, press play, and then tell it to either play in the browser window or play on the Roku device. Pretty clunky. Goes right to what you're saying about interface there, Brian.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, and he goes on to excoriate the experience as far as the DVR. He says the DVR experience feels like Time Warner Cable's DVR back in the late 90s. He says quality. He says Aereo essentially streams live TV over the internet in HD, but in order to do that and still be roughly live, the signal needs to be compressed quite a bit. So technically it's on the resolution, but you get all the jaggies and the messed up stuff. And so in general, he was disappointed, which weirdly, I mean, that's a total bummer. And I don't know how I feel about this, Tom, because to me, I've always been more excited about what the Aereo tale meant for changing the face of what you were and weren't allowed to do when it came to watching your content. And it almost seems to me personally, and this is really unfortunate, that the actual experience is kind of a footnote to whether or not the legality of it is allowed.
Well, if the legality is resolved and they can stay in business, what this will do, whether Aereo succeeds or not, is spur the companies to say, well, we can do better than that. So if we can't legislate them out of business, if we can't sue them out of business, let's compete them out of business, which is what consumers want them to do anyway. And maybe the networks will come and provide their own over-the-internet service that trumps Aereo, is much better, and doesn't have to run through microarrays in order to become legal.
Right. Now, having said all that, Cassidy, my heart truly goes out to you, man. I hate, I think everybody here in this endless quest to get the best experience possible, you take risks and you have to believe marketing hype. And I expect that I will be experiencing exactly what you experienced when I finally get my hand on what looks like the sweet, sweet Wii U TV experience. But I don't know if that'll be the case.
Yeah. All right, well, that's it for this episode of Frame Rate. Thanks, everybody, for watching or listening. Scott Wilkinson, thank you for joining us. Always great to have you, man. Let folks know about Home Theater Geeks and what else, anything else you're up to.
Oh, sure. Home Theater Geeks records Mondays 1 to 2, ostensibly, depending on when Twyett finishes up. Sometimes they get a bit of a late start, but we have a little bit of wiggle room, so that's good. Let's see. Today we had on Steve Venuti from the HDMI licensing organization, talking all about HDMI. Next week, very exciting show, Noel Lee, the head monster at Monster Cable.
Aha. Are you going to get to the bottom of why their cables cost more?
I'm going to certainly ask him about that.
Yeah, that'll be interesting.
Absolutely. I will say that theirs are not the most expensive cables by any stretch of
I'm sure that's what he'll be saying. Like, look, why does everybody pick on us? Yeah.
Well, it's true. It's true. The Nordost cables, I mean, there are speaker cables that are like a meter long that are like $20,000. So.
But they're made of unicorns, right?
Exactly. Yeah, and fairy dust. Yeah,
right.
Yeah, pixie dust.
Excellent.
Otherwise, I've found a new online home, at least for part of my time, at Secrets of Home Theater and High Fidelity. The website URL is hometheaterhifi.com, and I'm answering reader questions there and listener questions. So send them on in to scott@twit.tv, and you might very well see it up there on hometheaterhifi.com. Looking for some other gigs right now, so let me know if you hear of anything.
All right, thanks, Scott. And thank you all for watching or listening. You can find us on the web, twit.tv/FR. You can email us, framerate@twit.tv. And, of course, you can find us live on Mondays, 3 p.m. Pacific, 6 p.m. Eastern Time at live.twit.tv. For Brian Brushwood, the man who saved Tech News Today, I'm Tom Merritt. I'll see you next time.